In the dead of night, the royal palace of Assyria burns. Flames claw their way up marble columns, casting jagged shadows across the once majestic halls. The smell of smoke and charred wood fills the air, but amidst the chaos, one figure stands motionless. His eyes are fixed on the fire, reflecting the flickering light like cold embers. This is no ordinary night. This is the night Tiglath-Pileser II claims his throne. And as the flames rise higher, consuming the remnants of his rivals, the question remains: was this fate? Or was it Tiglath-Pileser's own hand that set the blaze? The whispers say it was him, that in one ruthless move he wiped away every obstacle standing between him and absolute power. But to truly understand this moment, we must go back to the beginning of his story, to a young prince standing in the shadows of his father's kingdom, waiting for his chance to strike. Years before the fire, before the crown ever touched his brow, Tiglath-Pileser was not the figure of destiny we now remember. Born to a lesser queen, he was the son who no one expected to see on the throne. His brothers, older and more favored, were the heirs, apparent, basking in the king's favor and the glory of battle. But Tiglath-Pileser? He was a shadow, a quiet observer in the glittering halls of Assyria's palace. While his brothers celebrated their victories, Tiglath-Pileser studied the men around him, their ambitions, their weaknesses. He watched, learned, and waited. For in the court of Assyria, survival was an art, and Tiglath-Pileser was its master. The king's court was a nest of vipers. Assyria, though powerful, was always on the brink of internal strife. The nobles were restless, factions forming behind closed doors. But young Tiglath-Pileser learned early that power wasn't just inherited, it was taken, and he had the patience of a hunter. His opportunity came during a time of war. The kingdom's borders were threatened by Babylonia, and while the court prepared for battle, Tiglath-Pileser saw his chance. He volunteered to lead a small contingent against the enemy, not for glory, but for the loyalty of the soldiers. He knew that in Assyria, the throne wasn't claimed in the court, it was won on the battlefield. The clash was fierce. Blood soaked the ground, and the Babylonians fought with relentless fury. But Tiglath-Pileser fought harder, not for the victory itself, but for his future. His strategy was meticulous, his resolve unshakable. When he returned to Assyria, it wasn't just with the spoils of war, it was with the loyalty of seasoned warriors, the very lifeblood of the kingdom. Flash forward, the struggle for power, but battles on the field were only the beginning. The true war was fought within the palace walls. With his father's health failing, the court became a breeding ground for ambition and betrayal. Tiglath-Pileser's older brothers, believing themselves the rightful heirs, began forging alliances with powerful nobles. But Tiglath-Pileser wasn't content to let them decide his fate. He struck first. One by one, his brothers began to fall. Accidents, it was said, or unfortunate illnesses. But behind the whispers of bad luck lay Tiglath-Pileser's hand, silent, calculated, deadly. And when the old king finally took his last breath, there was no one left to contest Tiglath-Pileser's claim to the throne. But the crown wasn't simply placed on his head. Even as the last of his brothers was laid to rest, there were whispers of rebellion, of nobles who questioned his legitimacy. He needed to send a message, to stamp out the last embers of resistance. And so we return to that fateful night. The night the palace burned. The flames consumed the ancient halls, turning silk tapestries into ashes and marble into rubble. But amidst the destruction, Tiglath-Pileser stood calm, unwavering. The whispers would say he was behind it, that he had orchestrated the fire, ensuring that none who opposed him would live to see the dawn. Whether that's true, we may never know. But what we do know is this: by morning, Tiglath-Pileser II was king, and Assyria would never be the same. When the fires finally died and the first rays of sunlight pierced the smoky haze, Tiglath-Pileser II stood at the heart of a transformed kingdom. His rivals had been reduced to ashes, his power solidified. But in Assyria, power was never truly secure. There would always be shadows lurking, whispers of rebellion, enemies within his own court. But Tiglath-Pileser was prepared. His rule would be one of iron and fire, forged in the crucible of ambition. He knew that to hold power in Assyria, one must be as ruthless as the gods themselves. The reign of Tiglath-Pileser II became the stuff of legend. He didn't just expand Assyria's borders, he reshaped the very fabric of the empire. But power, as he knew all too well, came at a cost. And as history remembers him both feared and revered, it also whispers of the price he paid to forge his legacy. To understand Tiglath-Pileser II is to understand that power is never truly won, only borrowed. And sometimes, to secure it, one must be willing to let everything burn.